Imagine you're just going about your normal day. You feel absolutely fine, right? And then, in a fraction of a second, everything just goes dark. Today, we're diving straight into an explainer on a condition that's basically sudden heart paralysis. It strikes with literally zero warning, it doesn't discriminate, and honestly, understanding how it works could quite literally save your life. We're breaking down the anatomy of an absolute emergency, ventricular fibrillation.
Listen to this harrowing account from a recent patient. Quote, "I was eating sushi, suddenly bam, I collapsed forward onto the counter." End quote. I mean, they were just out having a meal with a friend, having a drink, chatting. And then, nothing. There was no chest pain, no sudden palpitations, literally no warning signs at all. They didn't even have time to cry out for help. And they were incredibly lucky to survive, mostly just because a friend was sitting right there next to them. When this condition hits, it's instantaneous.
Section 1. What exactly is ventricular fibrillation?
Well, to understand what goes wrong, we first have to look at how a healthy heart actually does its job. I want you to imagine the heart not just as this anatomical muscle, but as a closed tube with only one exit at the very top. Think of a tube of toothpaste or, a squeezy bottle of mayonnaise. If you want to get all that mayonnaise out, you don't just squeeze it randomly from the middle, right? No, you squeeze it from the very bottom, pushing upward toward the exit. Your heart works exactly the same way. The bottom chambers, the ventricles, have to squeeze upward in a highly orderly fashion, starting from the furthest point away from the exit, to actually push blood out to the rest of your body.
And it all comes down to electricity. A normal heartbeat is like a perfectly set up line of dominoes. An electrical signal starts at the top, and the dominoes fall in this beautiful, orderly sequence, causing the muscle to squeeze from the bottom up. But in ventricular fibrillation, rogue electrical signals suddenly start popping up from totally wrong places. It's like someone just randomly poking the dominoes right in the middle of the line. That orderly sequence is completely destroyed. So instead of falling together, little isolated pockets of dominoes fall randomly. And the result? The heart muscle doesn't get that strong, unified squeeze. It just sort of quivers, or fibrillates, completely uselessly.
Zero. That's the volume of blood being pumped out of your heart when those rogue signals take over. Absolute zero. Because it's just quivering. There's zero squeezing force. And because no blood is moving, oxygen stops reaching the brain instantly. This right here is exactly why that patient at the sushi restaurant collapsed mid-sentence. Within mere minutes of this zero blood flow state, brain function just stops, leading to sudden death. So yeah, it is an absolute drop-everything immediate emergency.
Section 2. Danger signs and risks. Who's actually vulnerable? Given how unbelievably sudden and devastating this is, we've got to ask, who is actually in the crosshairs here? Well, the data points to three main high-risk groups. First up, people with a history of heart disease. We're talking past heart attacks, angina, heart failure, often stemming from lifestyle factors like high blood pressure or diabetes. Their heart muscle's already a bit damaged, which just makes those rogue electrical signals way more likely. Second, folks with a genetic or family history of sudden death. Conditions like Brugada syndrome can strike young, physically fit people who seem completely, perfectly healthy. I mean, even peak performance athletes can harbor this invisible risk. If you have a young relative who passed away suddenly, that is a major red flag. And third, anyone who has experienced unexplained fainting, sudden blackouts, or intense sudden palpitations in the past. These can be desperate warning signs from a heart that might just be temporarily short-circuiting.
Section 3. Life-saving electric shocks and resetting the heart.
Okay, so what happens if the absolute worst occurs? Remember, during an episode of ventricular fibrillation, the patient goes unconscious instantly. They can't call an ambulance. They can't pop a pill. By the time they hit the floor, they are 100% dependent on the outside world. But thankfully, medical science has given us some incredibly empowering, life-saving solutions. Enter the AED, the automated external defibrillator. Going back to our domino analogy, when the heart is in VF, the dominoes are falling chaotically all over the place. Now, an AED doesn't jump-start a stopped heart like you see in the movies. Instead, it delivers a massive electrical shock, sometimes over 300 joules, that completely stops all those chaotic rogue signals at once. It basically knocks down every single domino simultaneously, clearing the board so the heart's natural pacemaker can reset, stand the dominoes back up, and restart that orderly, life-saving pump. It's quite literally a reset button for your heart.
But what if you're in one of those high-risk groups and you live alone? Or you're asleep in bed when VF strikes. Nobody's there to run and grab a public AED. Well, for those patients, we have the ICD, an implantable cardioverter defibrillator. It's essentially a miniature implanted device, roughly half the size of the palm of your hand and super thin. It gets surgically placed right under the skin, usually on the left side of the chest. And this incredible little device acts as a constant internal safeguard. It monitors the heart's electrical signals 24/7, and if it detects the chaos of ventricular fibrillation, it automatically delivers that life-saving internal shock. It's basically your very own pocket-sized personal emergency room.
Section 4. The crucial difference between ventricular fibrillation and AFib.
Now, if you follow heart health, you might be thinking, wait a minute, I've heard of fibrillation before, but people live with it for years. There's a really critical nuance here. Notice how changing just one word, ventricle to atrium, changes absolutely everything. The ventricles are those final, powerful pumping chambers sending blood to the whole body. If they fibrillate, as we've just seen, blood flow drops to zero, deadly, needs an immediate shock. But the atria, those are the smaller upper receiving chambers. If they fibrillate, which is called AFib, the heart's overall blood output only drops slightly. Obviously, it's still a serious condition, but it doesn't kill you on the spot, and it's usually treated with meds or a procedure called an ablation, not a massive emergency shock. So it's just a one-character difference in the name, but a complete world of difference for survival.
Section 5. Daily life prevention measures to protect your heart.
Okay, we've covered the heavy, terrifying realities. Now let's pivot to something incredibly empowering: daily prevention. Because while some risk factors like genetics are totally out of our control, there are absolutely actionable steps we can take every single day to keep those electrical signals flowing smoothly. Smoking, drinking too much alcohol, and knocking back way too much caffeine can hyperstimulate your sympathetic nervous system. That's your body's fight or flight wiring. This creates the perfect environment for rogue electrical signals to thrive. The exact same goes for chronic stress and severe sleep deprivation. But you've also really got to pay attention to heat shock. Imagine hanging out in a warm, cozy room and suddenly stepping into a freezing cold bathroom, or jumping into a piping hot bath when you're freezing. That sudden temperature shock violently spikes your blood pressure and heart rate, which can actually trigger a sudden arrhythmia. In fact, it's a massive statistical killer during the winter months. We also need to watch out for extremes in physical activity. Both sitting around too much and pushing ourselves dangerously past our limits can seriously stress out that heart muscle.
So, we've unpacked the terrifying reality of ventricular fibrillation, the mechanics of how those heart dominoes can fall into utter chaos, and the amazing technology of AEDs and ICDs that can reset the system. But honestly, the absolute most powerful tool is the knowledge you hold right now. Managing your stress, watching your caffeine intake, and avoiding those extreme temperature shocks, those aren't just trendy wellness tips. They are active, vital defenses against an electrical short circuit in your chest. Your heart's electrical grid is firing right this second as you listen to this explainer. The question is, are your daily habits protecting that perfect rhythm, or are you unwittingly setting up the dominoes for a fall?